So hi everyone, I'm going to talk to you today a bit about when those two cultures connect, corporates and startups. I'm going to tell you a bit about Tomorrow Street, where I work, which is Vodafone's global accelerator. It's not strictly speaking a corporate because it's a joint venture between Vodafone and Technoport, which is a government-funded incubator. So we're kind of a public-private partnership based in Luxembourg. But first, I want to talk to you about something a little bit more personal about when cultures connect. So we've all heard the phrase, fail fast, right? It's a common phrase in the tech world. Now, I made a mistake when I was 17 and I didn't fail fast. I carried that mistake with me for 10 years and it was my passport photograph. As you can see, a lot has changed in this area over the years. Now actually, I carried this passport with me for around 10 years. I traveled the world on that passport, including to Lithuania. So actually, I came to Lithuania in 1994, and I worked as an English teacher in Ukmergė, which if you don't know is a small town probably about 1 hour from Vilnius. Oh, thank you. So there are some people already, I think, in Ukmergė from the audience around. So now, in those days, nowadays you think if you travel from any European city, like say from my hometown of Edinburgh to Vilnius, or Luxembourg, where I live now, to Vilnius, there's not much difference, right? You can stay in the same hotels, you can eat in the same restaurants, you can shop in the same shops. We all have smartphones, information is at our fingertips. In those days, of course, very, very different, right? For someone like me to come to Lithuania, 1994, the country was only 3 years out of the Soviet Union. And everything, the whole experience for me was really, really different. The culture was entirely new. And likewise, for the Lithuanians in Ukmergė that I was working with, I was kind of, from outer space almost. I was this, strange person from another world, really. Now, fail fast, right? I went into the classroom. I had no teaching experience, and I failed very, very fast, and I kept on failing almost every hour, it felt like. So these kids here, here's a photo. I guess these guys are around 38 years old now, so all grown up and part of the new Lithuania. But I was also failing fast outside of work as well. So this was the shop that I used to go to in the evening to try and buy my groceries, and I failed fast there as well because it wasn't a supermarket, so you had to ask for what you wanted, and I didn't speak any Lithuanian, so I was just pointing a bit like a monkey and trying to get some food so that I could eat. And after a couple of weeks, I thought, what am I going to do? I'm a crap teacher, and I can't buy food, and I'm going to starve to death in Lithuania, and they're going to find my skeleton in this apartment in Ukmergė. So when you're faced with those two cultures, those different cultures, you're thrown into a different culture. How do you survive? Well, how did I survive? It was thanks to you guys. It was thanks to the kindness and the generosity of Lithuanians. So thank you, Lithuania. Give yourselves a cheer. And looking back, it was kind of a trade, right? I think when two new cultures come together, they have things that they can help each other with, things that they can trade in order to both advance what their objectives are. Now, my Lithuanian friends and my students, it started with language, right? So they started to teach me a few words of Lithuanian so that I could go to the shop. I could buy some bulvinai, I could go to a restaurant, I could order food. They also helped me with what was really the internet of the day, the Lithuanian post office, because this was 1994, right? No smartphones, no internet. For me to get back in touch with my friends or family in Scotland, it was letters, it was maybe going to the post office to make an international call through the landline. So this was the portal to the outside world, and my Lithuanian friends helped me navigate the complexities of the post office. Lithuanian food. So my Lithuanian friends and my students, they taught me all about Lithuanian food so that I understood what I was ordering, and I could order kepta duona, and I can order cepelinai, the national dish. But it wasn't a one-way trade, right? I was also able to give something back. So English language, not just the English language, right, but slang, because I was working with English teachers, Lithuanians, who their grammar was better than mine, right? These people, they spoke fantastic English, grammatically perfect, but they were kind of clueless when it came to slang and street language because Lithuania back then had never been exposed to it. And in fact, the students knew more than the teachers because they were watching MTV and they were getting involved in popular culture, right? And this was another thing that I could help trade. A typical morning, I would come to Basanavičius Vidurinė mokykla in Ukmergė, and Vytautas in 10B puts his hand up and would say something like, "Mokytojas, today tell us about Metallica." So I was always, as well as teaching English, I was always kind of trading this popular culture knowledge. My brother helped me a lot. He would make mixtapes, send mixtapes to Lithuania. I could give them to friends. And there was this kind of trade going on. And it was also a time when travel opened up for Lithuanians, right? And many Lithuanians that I knew, they wanted to visit the UK. And I was able to help them with that, with the process, and also planning their visit. And for some reason, everyone in Lithuania back then was obsessed with the Loch Ness Monster. So as a Scot, I was kind of an ambassador for the Loch Ness Monster. So at the end of that year, I learned a lot. What was the lasting trade? Well, I have a very strong emotional connection with Lithuania to this day. And you guys all speak English, so I guess I must have really made a good impact, huh? But really, to be serious, I think when I look back at this time, and I compare it to my working life now, I think there's some strong similarities when startups and corporates come together, because there's so much that they can trade. I'm not going to go through this list. We'll talk about it a bit more in the panel. There are so many things that startups and corporates can trade together. So at Tomorrow Street, the trade we really do is we look for products that are business ready and we can deliver them to Vodafone customers. And in return, we give the startup access to those 700 million customers potentially worldwide. There's so much potential for these two cultures to connect, to find that common language, and yet the stereotypes are often very negative. So the relationship between startups and corporates is often portrayed as a kind of awkward marriage. Sometimes it's viewed as a kind of shark and a pilotfish relationship, the agile pilotfish which helps to guide the shark through the stormy waters, but stay away from those razor-sharp teeth. But I think that the stereotype that bothers me the most, if you Google startups and corporates, this is the first result for images. And I think it's very misleading because the startups that I'm working with, in many cases, they're actually older than me. They're ex-corporate guys who maybe they were made redundant. They took that money, they developed something amazing, and now they're in the startup world. And equally, some of my colleagues in the corporate world have come from startups, right? So I think everything is getting mixed up. We're in an era of great change, and these stereotypes are not helpful at all. So when we built Tomorrow Street, we kept this in mind, right? We really thought, how can we build a model that's different? We thought, let's build the model around the strengths of Vodafone in Luxembourg. Let's build a model that's really transparent so nobody feels like they're disadvantaged or getting ripped off. So firstly, Vodafone in Luxembourg, what do we have here? 10 years ago, we set up the Vodafone Procurement Company. It was kind of a startup. There was only 5 people in the first place. The goal was to centralize all of Vodafone's procurement in one location and buy at global level. So it's grown over 10 years. There's 340 people there now. And we buy everything for Vodafone pretty much, 25 billion euros of spend across 450 product categories. And the great advantage is when we work with a supplier, we work with a company, we'll often do one big global deal for that supplier, for example, for a software license, which can be millions of euros. So we spotted the potential. This model can be great for working with late-stage startups. We need great suppliers that are agile, that bring something to help us transform in this digital world. How do we work? How does our model work? Well, basically, you see this picture here of the building. So Tomorrow Street is on the 4th floor, and on the 3 floors below, we have the procurement company. So on the 3 floors below, all those deals are being made, hardware, software, services, negotiations, all the POs are being prepared, etc. So there's that 25 billion euros of spend is running through those 3 floors. On the 4th floor, we launched last year, September, Tomorrow Street. So we can host 16 late-stage startups in this space. The obligation of the startups is they have to set up a subsidiary company in Luxembourg, 5 or 6 people on the ground. The startup headquarters, that can stay in the native country. So if the startup is HQ'd in Lithuania, UK, wherever, that can stay, and they just need to set up a small company in Luxembourg. What do we do in Tomorrow Street? We have a team of around 15 people. Basically, once a startup comes into our program, we kind of wrap support services around them. The main thing we do is we facilitate those business opportunities. So we work with the startup, we look at their product, we understand it, we know who to connect them with for those deals that are coming up in the procurement world. It's not just within Vodafone. We work with 55 partner telcos around the world. So for example, Rogers in Canada, MTS in Russia. So that's another chunk of business opportunities. And then the third one is kind of everything else. Vodafone has a massive enterprise business. We sell to banks, pharmaceutical, automotive, everything. So we can also help sell the product into those enterprise channels. An important thing we do is we also work with the startups on their pitch, so they know who they're pitching to, what those people are looking for, and we coach them around that to help them navigate that Vodafone culture. We don't take equity in the startups, an important point. No equity taken. Our model is very transparent. We work on a revenue share basis. So we will say, okay, basically here is a small percentage we will take off the revenue that we generate for you. This is the model that we work with. So that's agreed up front. And that revenue share that Tomorrow Street takes is intended to cover our costs. Because of course we are a joint venture, public and private, and we want to make sure that the investment from both the private side and the public side, the taxpayer money, is not being wasted. We also run Luxembourg's biggest tech event, which took place 2 weeks ago. It's called Arch Summit. And for the startups in our program, we give them some special treatment. We help them connect with all the corporates that are there. But we had a really big event. We had 170 startups in attendance and about 30 corporates, Vodafone suppliers mainly, such as Nokia, BlackBerry, Ericsson, Huawei, and so on. Now, focus is very important as well, right? Because often I've seen corporate models that just kind of float to one side in space next to the corporate, and they're not very well connected. So we decided, okay, we have to very much focus on what we can deliver into Vodafone. So we focus on late-stage startups, post-Series A, usually companies that have about 30, 40 people. They have cash flow, they have revenue. They're at that growth stage. They're really looking to grow. In terms of product and technologies, we look for Internet of Things. Vodafone has a fast-growing consumer IoT business. So if you go into a Vodafone store in the UK, for example, you can buy products such as VPet. It's a little tag that you can put on your dog's collar, and you can always track where your dog is at any one time. Enterprise IoT, also a very fast-growing business for us. Automotive, supply chain, a number of industries and sectors. We also look at artificial intelligence, very broad, of course. We're looking at marketing. We're looking at application within the telco world. So, for example, customer experience. How can you analyze network performance and improve this? Thirdly, Vodafone has about 700 million customers worldwide. So you imagine all the data that has to be protected, so cybersecurity is a focus for us as well. Now, we also keep an open mind, so we look at products that are scalable, so even if something doesn't fit into those first three, if we think, wow, we can really grow this in Vodafone, we can really add value to Vodafone's customers, then we consider that product. Quickly, because I know we're running a little bit behind schedule today, our process works in those three simple blocks. This is kind of the wide funnel, the scouting activity, which I'm involved in. We get external recommendations through working with VCs and accelerators, because we don't take equity, it's an attractive model for investors. We also get internal recommendations from within Vodafone. So we pick the best, the most relevant, and we take them through an evaluation process. And if that goes well, we also work on a live proof of concept. So we have 4 companies in our program so far. I'll be very quick here. We have LB Networks, it's network performance analytics. Expito, a Canadian company that builds private IoT networks. We have Old Street Labs, London-based enterprise software. And we have Azumi, who are our newest signing, which is basically Netflix for kids. Now, we'll do Q&A in a second, and then I'll also be here for the corporate startup panel. But I just thought I'll finish with 4 tips. You think back to me as a teacher in Ukmergė, failing fast and trying to learn. So these 4 tips are based on the mistakes that I see startups making when they come into corporate, and how to fix it. So basically, number 1, don't have 1 pitch, have at least 3. Okay? You need that 1-minute pitch, that elevator pitch. You meet someone over a beer, you have to tell them in 60 seconds what you do in a passionate, entertaining way. Have that 5-minute pitch for the pitch competitions, and then have that more in-depth 20-minute pitch when you need to go into a company and talk in detail about what you do. Linked to this, you have to always adapt your pitch to the audience. Don't take an engineer's pitch to marketing people. Don't take a marketing pitch to engineers. Sounds obvious, but I've seen it many times, and startups miss their big opportunity because they don't connect with the culture that they're talking to. The way to get over that, please don't be shy, just ask. I think 95% of corporate people are nice, decent people. The other 5%, I'm not so sure, but it's a good chance if you ask, you'll get some help and some advice. And finally, founders are often quite introverted. If they come from programmers, developers backgrounds, it's tough, right? It's tough to get out there and network, but it's so crucial to moving a company forward and connecting into the startup world. So I encourage you all today, over a beer later, just intermingle, talk with everyone, and connect. And link to number 3, I think we can jump to the Q&A now. So don't be shy. Please ask. You have no questions about corporates working with startups. Wow. Any questions about Ukmergė?
Yeah, thank you. You said that there's some change so that ex-corporates move to the startup world and also the other way around. So is this something that you observe like everywhere globally or in the Western Europe, and is it a very recent phenomenon? Because I haven't really seen that so much. There's some of that, but is it really like a phenomenon?
I think no, not a phenomenon. I think it's kind of based on personal experience. So the CEO at Tomorrow Street had no corporate experience. So he founded 7 companies in Australia, and he was kind of headhunted by us because we just needed someone who could think completely differently and who understood from an entrepreneur's perspective what it meant to be a startup. So I don't think it's common, but I think it really helps just shake up the mindset. And even just, I think that intergenerational thing as well. So I work with people who are older than me and people who are younger than me. I learn really a lot from working with the millennial generation as well. So I think it's that openness. It's about mixing people up in one team, and that's your best chance of success. Okay. Okay, guys. Well, see you in a moment for the panel.